You're listening to my favorite podcast,
The Big Buck Registry.
Big Buck Registries.
Big Buck Registries.
Big Buck Registries.
The Big Buck Registries Deer Hunt Podcast.
Welcome, fellow deer hunters, to the November edition of the Deer News. Deer news that you might have missed over the last month. We're traveling all over the country again with stories that we feel are newsworthy. We'll start off with a controversial story about sharpshooters hired to kill deer from helicopters on Catalina Island in California, then to Kentucky for some poaching cases, West Virginia for an urban deer hunting story, then to Rhode Island for a newly sanctioned bow and arrow hunt. We explore a story about steering clear of ash trees for tree stands in Wisconsin. From there, Jim explores a CWD story in Minnesota. Then we discuss spear hunting in Arkansas. To finish up, Jim explores a potential new record buck in Texas, Dusty discusses big changes in Utah, and I wrap it up with a debate in Jamestown, New York, over managing a growing deer population. We've got a lot to cover, so let's dive in.
Now here's Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Our first story takes us to California. Helicopter sharpshooters to target invasive deer on Catalina Island amid controversy. Santa Catalina Island, a popular resort destination, is at the center of a heated debate as officials propose using helicopter-mounted sharpshooters to eradicate nearly 2,000 invasive mule deer. The plan, spearheaded by the Catalina Island Conservancy, aims to protect the island's native flora, which has been severely impacted by the deer. The Conservancy, responsible for 90% of the island's management, asserts that the mass culling is crucial to safeguard Catalina's indigenous plants and grasses. These have suffered extensively due to the foraging habits of the deer. Adding to the urgency are the recurring cycles of extreme drought and wildfires, which have further decimated the island's vegetation. This environmental stress has driven malnourished deer into developed regions, leading to confrontations with humans and domesticated animals. However, the proposal has not been without its detractors. A significant portion of the island's residents, backed by over 2,000 petition signatories, are calling on the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to halt the hunt. Many view the plan as a violent solution to a complex problem. Diane Stone, vice president of the Catalina Island Humane Society, labeled the Conservancy's approach as violent and ugly. Historically, Catalina Island has grappled with the challenges posed by various invasive species, including goats, bison, and swine. Mule deer, introduced in the 1930s for hunting purposes, have since become a major concern. Their unchecked growth due to a lack of natural predators has placed immense strain on native habitats. In response to the controversy, Whitney Latour, the Conservancy's chief executive officer, stated, "The island and the deer are both fighting for survival, and neither one is winning." She emphasized the dire consequences of rising temperatures and drought if the deer issue remains unaddressed. The Conservancy's plan involves hiring sharpshooters from the nonprofit White Buffalo Inc. next fall. These sharpshooters will employ AR-15 style rifles with non-lead bullets to carry out the culling. While the hunted deer will largely be left where they fall, officials plan to remove carcasses from populated areas. The ongoing debate underscores the challenges of conservation in tourist hotspots and the delicate balance between preserving nature and respecting public sentiment.
Next, we turn to Kentucky for a story first seen on KYFW.com. Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife pursues restitution in deer poaching cases. In a decisive move against wildlife poaching, the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources is not only imposing criminal penalties, but also actively pursuing restitution from those found guilty. This intensified action is in response to concerns that poachers are robbing the Commonwealth of its treasured wildlife resources and curtailing opportunities for legitimate recreationists. 2 individuals convicted of poaching record-class bucks during the 2022 hunting season are now facing demands for substantial restitution. The department is seeking over $12,000 combined from these individuals, in addition to the fines, seizures, and hunting rights suspensions that were already imposed in their criminal cases. Rich Storm, the Commissioner of Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, emphasized the department's dedication, stating, "Our pursuit of restitution underscores our unwavering commitment to safeguarding the fish and wildlife resources of the Commonwealth." Luke Hall of Floyd, Virginia, and Brandon T. Smith of Nicholasville, Kentucky, are the 2 men at the center of these restitution cases. Expressing his concerns, Storm said, "The real tragedy is the lost opportunity for someone else, all because the deer was taken illegally." Gabe Jenkins, the Deputy Commissioner of Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, highlighted the department's efforts. "We've expanded our roster of official measurers statewide. This not only benefits hunters with legitimate scores on their legally hunted game, but also ensures efficient scoring for restitution cases involving illegally taken animals," Jenkins explained. "Kentucky enjoys a global reputation as a premier hunting destination, particularly for white-tailed deer and elk, with the state's elk herd being the largest east of the Rocky Mountains. The annual elk hunt drawing sees tens of thousands of eager applicants. The economic impact of deer and elk hunting in Kentucky is profound, injecting over $550 million into the Commonwealth annually. The detrimental effects of poaching extend beyond wildlife, impacting local communities and economies that rely on the influx of tourism from law-abiding recreationists."
Next, we turn to West Virginia for a story first noted at intelligencer.net. Ogle Bay Park's urban deer hunt to go ahead amid controversy and concerns. Despite facing significant backlash, the planned urban deer hunt at Ogle Bay Park in Wheeling will proceed, according to Ogle Bay CEO Bob Peckinpah. The decision comes after the park's management received varied feedback from the Wheeling community, with some supporting the initiative and others opposing it. The hunt, scheduled for November 6th through 8, aims to address the overpopulation of deer in the park. The West Virginia Division of Natural Resources has indicated that the deer population at Ogle Bay Resort is 5 times the optimal amount per square mile for the region. This overpopulation presents safety concerns for both the resort's guests and the deer. However, the decision has not been without controversy. Teresa Torreseva, with Torreseva Law, has been vocal in her opposition to the culling. Her firm has submitted 2 Freedom of Information Act requests seeking details about the hunt, including safety contracts, names and applications of the hunters, and feeding protocols for white deer at the park. Torreseva criticized Ogle Bay for not exploring non-lethal alternatives and accused them of spending $41,000 on a public relations firm to manage the negative publicity. In response to concerns about the culling, some community members have hinted at boycotting Ogleby Fest. However, Peckinpah has not been made aware of any concrete plans for such a boycott. He emphasized that Ogle Bay has explored all options regarding the deer population and believes that the hunt is the most appropriate course of action. Vendors at Ogle Bay Fest have expressed concerns that the backlash against the deer hunt might impact their sales. Betsy Helmick, a vendor at the event, highlighted that the primary victims of any protest or boycott would be the vendors who have been preparing for the event for months. Adam Bedway, co-owner of East Wheeling Clayworks and a vendor at Ogle Bay Fest since 2018, suggested that those opposing the culling should find alternative ways to protest that won't harm small businesses. He recommended boycotting activities available year-round at the resort, such as golfing, instead of the Ogle Bay Fest. Peckinpah reiterated that the deer hunt and Ogle Bay Fest are separate events with distinct missions. He encouraged those considering a protest to reconsider and emphasize that the decision to proceed with the deer hunt was made after careful consideration and consultation with experts. The goal is to promote a healthier ecosystem, reduce human-deer conflicts, and ensure the community's sustainability for the long term.
Now we go to Rhode Island for a story first seen on WPRI.com. Bow and arrow deer hunting greenlit in Bristol amid rising deer population. In an effort to manage the escalating deer population, the town of Bristol, in collaboration with the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, DEM, has sanctioned archery deer hunting in specific wooded areas. Last month, 4 properties, namely Minturn, Hopeworth, Skaters Pond, and 100 Acre Woods, were open to this form of hunting. The surge in the deer population has not only led to increased complaints from homeowners about damage to their gardens and yards, but has also been linked to a notable rise in vehicle collisions involving deer. Dylan Ferreira, a DEM wildlife biologist, emphasized the importance of regulated hunting as a primary method used by state agencies across the U.S. to control deer populations. He stated, "Opening new town properties to hunting is a great step to reduce the population in Bristol and reduce the negative impacts associated with overpopulated deer. However, the decision to permit bow and arrow hunting has been met with reservations from some community members. While the town has clarified that only bow and arrow can be used for hunting on the designated properties, and hunters must adhere to specific licensing and permit requirements, concerns about safety persist. Allison Aruda, a local resident, voiced her apprehensions, particularly about children's safety, given that some of the hunting areas are close to densely populated neighborhoods. The DEM has set clear guidelines prohibiting the shooting of arrows within 200 feet of an occupied residence or building. Ferreira further reassured residents by highlighting the relative safety of bow and arrow hunting compared to firearm hunting. To ensure compliance with state hunting laws, environmental officers will patrol the designated hunting areas throughout the season. The hunting season in Bristol commenced on September 15th and will continue until January 31, while the primary objective is to curb the deer population. The initiative has sparked a debate about balancing wildlife management with community safety and concerns.
Next, we turn to Wisconsin. Wisconsin DNR advises hunters to steer clear of ash trees for deer stands. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, DNR, has issued a warning to hunters advising them to avoid placing deer stands in or near ash trees during this deer hunting season. The caution comes as many ash trees in the southern half of Wisconsin, Door County, and the Mississippi River counties are either dead or dying due to the emerald ash borer infestation. This invasive insect continues to spread throughout the state, with unreported infestations likely present in various locations. Trees infested with the emerald ash borer are structurally weaker and may unexpectedly snap or drop large branches. Bill McNee, a DNR forest health specialist, emphasized the risks, stating, "Dead and dying ash trees are structurally weaker than healthy trees, so they are not safe places to put deer stands." He further added that it can often be challenging to determine if a tree has been infested, so it's safer for hunters to place deer stands in other types of trees. Tree stand accidents are a significant concern, being the leading cause of severe injuries among deer hunters. Research indicates that 1 in 4 bow hunters has experienced a fall or near fall from an elevated stand. To ensure safety, the DNR recommends the following. Always wear a full-body harness, also known as a fall arrest system. Maintain 3 points of contact while climbing into and out of the tree stand. Use a haul line to raise and lower unloaded firearms or bows. Utilize a lifeline when climbing, ensuring connection from the time one leaves the ground until they return. For those unfamiliar with ash trees, they can be identified by their opposite branching patterns and compound leaves with 5 to 11 leaflets. More details on identifying ash trees can be found on the UW-Madison's Department of Entomology's webpage. The DNR also advises hunters to be mindful of forest pests and diseases. When traveling for hunting season, it's recommended to obtain firewood close to the burning location to reduce the risk of spreading tree-killing insects and diseases. Dry firewood with loose bark poses the least risk, and purchasing certified firewood is another safe option. For more information about the emerald ash borer and other related topics, hunters and the general public can visit the Wisconsin DNR website.
Next, we turn to Minnesota for a story from house.mn.gov. Chronic wasting disease in Minnesota, vigilance remains essential. Chronic wasting disease, CWD, is a progressive and fatal ailment that affects the brain, spinal cord, and various tissues of deer, elk, and moose. Fortunately, the prevalence of CWD in Minnesota remains relatively low. Since 2002, approximately 120,000 wild deer have been tested, with only 217 testing positive. These positive cases are primarily found in the southeastern region of the state. Notably, no detections have been reported in wild elk and moose since 2004. The House Environment and Natural Resources Finance and Policy Committee recently held an informational hearing to discuss the state's efforts against CWD. Rick Hansen, DFL South St. Paul, the committee chair, highlighted the significant reforms and actions taken by Minnesota in response to CWD during the legislative session. As of last week, 56 Farm and Survey herd inspections have been completed in 2023. All animals that are slaughtered or die on farms undergo testing. JOP confirmed that, to date, 145 CWD test admissions have been received, and currently, no CWD-positive cervids exist in Minnesota. With the state's deer hunting season set to commence on November 4th, Kelly Straka, the wildlife section manager for the Department of Natural Resources, expressed hope that hunters will continue to play a crucial role in keeping the state's wild deer population free from CWD. In areas where wild deer have previously tested positive, mandatory sampling of hunter-harvested deer will be implemented on the opening weekend. Last year, a commendable 87% of hunters complied with this requirement. Straka praised the dedication and passion of hunters towards the health of the deer population. She also highlighted the success of the free voluntary testing options available statewide, which began last year. The Department of Natural Resources Deer Dumpster Program will also be operational, with 43 sites and management zones expected to remove 225 tons of deer waste. The Minnesota Center for Prion Research and Outreach provided an update on its activities, emphasizing its engagement with over 21,500 individuals at targeted events this year. The center is a multidisciplinary institution at the University of Minnesota, focusing on the biology and epidemiology of human and animal prion diseases and related protein misfolding disorders. State agencies also shared updates on various topics, including climate resiliency grants, the impact of the emerald ash borer, and the water storage and lawns to legumes initiative. In conclusion, while the numbers related to CWD in Minnesota are currently favorable, the state remains committed to its proactive measures and relies on the continued cooperation of hunters and the public to ensure the health and safety of its deer population.
Next, we turn to Arkansas for a story seen on arkansasonline.com. Arkansas Game and Fish Commission explores spear hunting for deer. In a recent development, the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, AGFC, is considering the possibility of allowing residents to hunt white-tailed deer using spears. The topic was introduced by Bill Jones, a member of the AGFC, during the Commission's monthly committee meetings held in Little Rock. Jones emphasized the natural and native aspect of spear hunting, stating Arkansas is the natural state, and nothing is more natural and more native than hunting with a spear. Jones's introduction was followed by a presentation from Tim Wells, an Illinois native who is an avid spear hunter with a significant following on his YouTube channel, boasting 1.3 million subscribers. Wells's popularity, especially among younger audiences, caught the attention of the Commission. Currently, Nebraska stands as the only state in the contiguous U.S. that permits spear hunting for deer. Alaska allows spear hunting for all game, while Texas and Hawaii permit spear hunting for exotic ungulates. Alabama had allowed spear hunting for deer for approximately 2 decades, but decided to ban it in 2018. In Arkansas, spear hunting is currently permitted only for feral hogs, as noted by Brad Young, the Game and Fish Commission's chief of enforcement. Wells, who was a champion javelin thrower in college, shared his journey into spear hunting, which began when he attached a spearhead to his javelin and hunted a hog. He has since used a spear to hunt over 350 animals globally, including formidable creatures like brown bears and Cape buffalo. Wells highlighted the efficiency and lethality of spears, noting their large cutting diameter which causes significant blood loss, leading to a quick death for the animal. He contrasted this with arrows, which have a smaller diameter and can sometimes result in delayed mortality. For those considering spear hunting, Wells provided insights into the technique. He mentioned that hunting from an elevated stand is the most effective approach for deer, given their thin skin and light frames. A mere drop of a spear onto a deer can be lethal. The ideal range for a spear throw when hunting from the ground is about 10 yards, with 5 yards being the optimal distance. The discussion on spear hunting has opened up a new avenue for hunting enthusiasts in Arkansas, and it remains to be seen how the AGFC will proceed with this proposal.
Next, we turn to Texas for an article first seen on KLTV.com. Teen hunter Riley Brewer takes aim at Texas record with monumental buck harvest. In a remarkable display of patience and skill, 14-year-old Riley Brewer may have etched her name in the record books after taking down a colossal 31-point buck in Bowie County. The potential record-setting event unfolded on the grounds of the Red River Army Depot, a stretch of land known for its robust white-tailed deer population. Riley, accompanied by her father, Ricky Brewer, embarked on what would become a historic hunt during a youth weekend. The Brewers had been tracking this particular buck, affectionately dubbed Old Monroe, for 3 years. Their dedication to the pursuit was about to pay off in a way they had only imagined. As the weekend's cold rain subsided, the conditions for hunting couldn't have been more favorable. Despite forgetting her rain gear, which led to her father lending her his and waiting in a pickup to escape the chill, Riley's resolve did not waver. She decided to stay in the stand until 6:40 p.m., a decision that proved to be fateful. Ricky, a government civilian with access to the land, had barely warmed up when he heard the shot that signaled success. Racing back to the stand, he found his daughter overwhelmed with emotion, having just shot the buck they had pursued for so long. The deer, taken down from about 35 yards away, lay only 15 yards from where it was hit. The buck was initially scored by a taxidermist at 238 1/8, a figure that would shatter the state youth record of 209. However, the score won't be official until a 60-day waiting period has passed, followed by an official scoring. In the meantime, Riley's feat has caught the attention of national hunting publications, and congratulations have poured in from the community, including a tweet from Senator Brian Hughes lauding the young hunter's accomplishment. Riley, who has been hunting whitetail with her father for the past 3 years, has shown a remarkable progression, harvesting a 13-point buck in her first year and an 11-point the following year. Her father describes her as a die-hard hunter, a trait that was clearly on display during this latest hunt. The brewer's story is not just one of a record potential, but also of a family bond strengthened by shared experiences in the wilderness. Ricky's pride in his daughter's achievement is palpable, and Riley's gratitude towards her father is heartfelt. She credits him with setting her up for success and being by her side throughout her life. As the community awaits the official scoring, Riley Brewer looks forward to new challenges. If the preliminary score holds, Riley Brewer will not only have claimed a state record, but also a place in the hearts of hunters everywhere as a symbol of youth, perseverance, and the enduring allure of the great outdoors.
Next, we travel to Utah for a story reported on MoabTimes.com in a move that reflects the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, DWR, commitment to adaptive management and responsiveness to public input. The DWR has announced a series of proposed changes to big game hunting regulations slated for implementation in 2024. These proposals, as outlined by DWR spokesperson Faith Jolly, are designed to address hunters' concerns and suggestions, with a focus on research-backed management strategies that ensure the sustainability of wildlife populations for all Utahns. The DWR's approach is two-pronged. It is data-driven, ensuring that wildlife is managed within sustainable biological parameters, and it is also socially responsive, taking into account the preferences and desires of the hunting community. Kent Hersey, the DWR Big Game Projects Coordinator, noted that while biological impacts are a critical factor in decision-making, the social aspects of hunting, such as the regularity of hunts and the chance to harvest mature bucks, are influenced by hunter feedback. Central to the proposed changes is a research study on 5 hunting units in southern Utah. This study, which will run from 2024 through 2027, aims to determine the impact of various hunting restrictions on mule deer populations, hunting opportunities, and hunter satisfaction. The study will test antler point restrictions, weapon technology limitations, and season length adjustments to see if these can improve the overall hunting experience and deer population health. Specifically, the study will introduce an antler restriction of 4 points, or better on one side, on the Pine Valley hunting unit to protect younger bucks. It will also assess the impact of shorter hunting seasons on the Beaver and Southwest Desert units and evaluate the effect of weapon restrictions on the Methi-Dutton unit. The Boulder-Kuiparowitz unit will see a combination of all 3 strategies. To maintain consistency and control for variables, permit numbers on each of the units will be set based on the average from 2020 to 2023, with the flexibility to adjust permits by up to 20% annually to keep buck-to-do ratios stable. Additionally, the DWR is responding to technological advancements in hunting equipment. A technology committee established in April 2022 has proposed removing length restrictions on arrows and bolts and prohibiting the use of scopes on muzzle loaders during certain hunts. This aligns with practices in other western states and is intended to preserve hunting traditions while helping wildlife managers meet their objectives. Another significant change proposed is the introduction of mandatory harvest reporting for all general season deer and elk hunts beginning in 2024. This change comes in response to hunter requests and the availability of technology that simplifies data collection. The DWR believes this will yield more comprehensive and accurate harvest data, offering better insights into the state of Utah's big game populations. In light of recent severe weather events that have impacted pronghorn populations, The DWR is also proposing changes to pronghorn translocation sites. The plan is to relocate pronghorns from areas where populations are thriving to those that have been negatively affected, with 8 new hunting units identified as potential augmentation sites. The DWR is actively seeking public feedback on these proposals. Public meetings will be held, and the DWR has made presentations available online for review. The public comment period opened on October 24th, with deadlines for online comments set before the respective Regional Advisory Council and Wildlife Board meetings. The Southeastern Utah RAC meeting, for example, is scheduled for November 15th, with online comments due by November 8th. These proposed changes by the Utah DWR represent a forward-thinking approach to wildlife management, balancing the needs and desires of the hunting community with the imperative of conserving wildlife populations for future generations. The DWR encourages public participation in this process, ensuring that the voices of Utah's hunters and conservationists are heard and considered in the stewardship of the state's rich natural heritage.
And finally, we turn to New York for a story that was seen on postjournal.com. Jamestown City Council debates solutions for managing rising deer population. The Jamestown City Council is currently grappling with the issue of a burgeoning deer population within the city limits, a topic that has sparked varied opinions among council members and candidates. This issue was brought to the forefront during a recent Meet the Candidates forum hosted by WRFA, Media One Group, and the Post Journal. Terry Frank, the Media One news director, highlighted the ongoing problem of deer in the city and surrounding areas, noting that previous attempts by the City Council to address the issue had not resulted in any concrete solutions. The council had once formed a committee to explore potential remedies, but no action was taken. Candidates were asked about their approach to this issue, with many suggesting deferment to the state government agency responsible for wildlife management. Councilman Bill Reynolds III, R. Ward 5, expressed the complexity of the deer population issue and indicated his preference to defer to the New York Department of Environmental Conservation for appropriate solutions. In 2021, a proposal for a controlled deer hunt was rejected by council members. The plan, led by former Ward 6 Councilman Tom Nelson, would have involved 15 experienced licensed volunteer hunters using archery equipment in isolated city-owned areas. The proposed hunt aimed to cull antlerless deer, with the meat being donated to the Food Bank of Western New York, and would have taken place in designated parks away from public spaces. Councilman Jeff Russell voiced his support for the deer hunt, praising Tom Nelson's thorough approach and expressing disappointment that the plan was ultimately not approved. A Democratic challenger, Alyssa Porter, City Democratic Party chairwoman and candidate for one of the at-large council positions, offered a different perspective. Porter, a resident of Ward 6, which is heavily impacted by the deer population, pointed to a broader issue of insufficient collaboration between the mayor and city council. She emphasized the need for council members who are proactive in seeking additional funding to support programs addressing such issues. The State Department of Environmental Conservation and Department of Motor Vehicles have recently issued statements advising the public that deer are more active during November and December, increasing the likelihood of road crossings. They have provided tips for drivers to decrease speed when deer are spotted near roadsides, use emergency lights or headlight signals to warn other drivers, and exercise caution during dawn and dusk when visibility is reduced. According to State Farm Insurance, there were an estimated 1.8 million animal collision insurance claims in the U.S. between July 2022 and June 2023, predominantly involving deer, with Pennsylvania recording the highest number of claims. The issue of deer population management remains a contentious topic in Jamestown, with city officials and residents alike seeking a balanced and effective approach to wildlife management within urban settings.
That concludes this month's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller for the Deer News, and thank you for tuning in to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunt podcast. We can be found on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you would like to support us and our cause, please consider buying some merchandise off of our merch page by visiting www.bigbuckmerch.com. Catch you next time, and good luck in the deer woods.